what relaxes you? You mentioned you had a rough week recently. How do you unwind?
Well, in recent years, and certainly in my early years, particularly after starting Grameen Foundation, I didn't find much that relaxed me. I didn't even see the need to search for such things, and probably again without some counseling from mentors and some kind of self-exploration, I don't know. I might have been a victim of burnout. It's possible. For me, what relaxes me is running. I've done a couple of marathons in recent years, and people wonder, how does someone with you work so hard to find time for that? I'm saying, I put it the other way. I said, how could I work so hard without making time for that? And it's almost like a meditation for me, running, and exploring the boundaries of that kind of physical possibilities. I love to, while I'm not particularly good at it, I love to dance, and so I have a whole group of kind of musicians that I spend time with, and friends, and they play the music and I dance to the music, and I find a lot of joy in the kind of the improvisation of dancing and just being, reacting to the great music, and I love reading about certain eras in history. I can get lost in a civil war and 20th century history, and in reading about the Great Depression, for example, and I go to these are things that take me to a totally different place, and when I find them, and I find it, every few years I find another one, and then I just make it a priority amidst all the other things that go on to make time for them.
You've mentioned musicians a couple times. Do you play an instrument?
I do not.
You don't? Okay.
I don't.
Have you ever wanted to?
I've thought about it. What I realize is I saw a theme in my life, and my wife also, of just feeling enormously energized by watching musicians do their craft, and who are not going through the motions, even ones of moderate ability, and then what I've come to love in recent years is to get to know personally some musicians and to kind of understand what makes them tick, and the creative process, and so you're not going to get that with the most famous musicians, but there are a lot of musicians out there that are really available and not fabulously wealthy, but just doing it for the love of it. So I've gotten to know quite a number of musicians, and something for me, while I don't desire to develop that discipline myself, to admire it, and to learn kind of about new genres in music, and it again, for me, it's almost like a meditation. It just good music played live by musicians who really care about it, and frankly, because so many of them play small venues to small audiences, to actually be part of affirming them, as perhaps some volunteers and grant makers have been affirming of me in my role. It just gives me great energy, and also ability to detach from the demands and the rigors, and it replenishes me.
Just want to get that down. Well, I know we don't have all the time in the world today. I just have a couple more questions, if you don't mind. Somewhat off the wall, you might think, but curious to know anyway. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a baseball player, and at the time I wanted to be a scientist, and part of that was also energized by I had a grandfather, not even one I knew very well, who was dying of cancer, and I wanted to be helpful, so So those were two things, and it's interesting. There's a part of me that likes to play, and a part of me that likes to help, and so those have remained probably themes throughout. And it was interesting. This is where my father played a very important role in my life. And this is also maybe where I was beginning the first of many honest discussions about my own strengths and limitations. And I said to my father, I saw some really good baseball players in my, school, and I said, I may not ever make it to the major leagues. I've come to this conclusion at age 7, and so I was kind of probing, and I said to my father, but one of the things I enjoyed even at that age was watching sports on TV, and I said, but maybe what I can be is I can be a great sportscaster. And I kind of asked my father, and he said, one of these conversations that sticks with you for a lifetime. And he said, well, as long as you kind of push yourself to be the very best at that, I would think that would be a great career for you. And so the judgment about leaving aside just sports in general, because he was a physician, but also to play that kind of secondary role, the enabler of helping others follow sports rather than being the actor oneself, was an acceptable choice as long as I was passionate about it and as long as I was the best I could be, my personal best at that. I had full support from again from a father figure, from my father figure, and I think that those things set me on a course. Helped establish some core values that have guided me consciously and subconsciously my whole life.